As quickly as Monopoly rose to the most popular board game in America, it fell to one of the most hated games of all time. This is the story of Monopoly. In 1866, an American game developer named Elizabeth Magie was born in the state of Illinois. From an early age, Magie was exposed to politics, as her father, James K. Magie, worked closely with Abraham Lincoln during the Lincoln-Douglas debates around Illinois. This would later have a significant impact on the game she would create. Magie always considered herself a creator. She spent much of her time writing poetry, plays, and even engineering. In 1892, she even received a patent for one of her inventions, a system that would ease the process of typewriting. This was a noteworthy accomplishment at the time, since 99% of patents were credited to men. Magie was a firm believer in equality between men and women, as well as a believer in Georgism, an economic philosophy that land and other natural resources should belong to all people. This strong political activism was no doubt inspired by her upbringing. Her beliefs were especially eye-catching at the time, since land ownership was the main factor in the nation's economy. But many people took issue with this stance. For one, Americans didn't like more taxes. Only a century ago had the Americans dumped hundreds of pounds of tea into the Boston Harbor, out of frustration at the way they were being taxed. Georgism would have spelled a nationwide land tax to prop up the American government, taking the majority power out of the hands of landowners and landlords. And Magie's passion towards her political beliefs led to her creating a game, entirely focused on the principles of Georgism. The game was called the Landlord's Game. She filed for the patent in 1903, which was accepted just a year later. The Landlord's Game shared a lot of similar features as the modern Monopoly. It had a similar board, players moved around the track and took ownership of different properties. The difference was, this game was meant to be frustrating. Magie designed this game to show how harmful an economic system based on land ownership could truly be. But in a similar fashion, this game took a long time to complete. And Magie didn't stop there. She only made this first version to show Americans how poorly the current system was working. After that got around, she released a second version of the game, this time following Georgist ideals. The idea was that after playing this new version of the game, people would get a good look at the benefits of Georgism and be more likely to support it. But the problem with this game is that it wasn't a massive success. There weren't many hard and fast rules for players to follow, and the presentation wasn't very official. Fast forward to 1932, and one of the most devastating economic downturns the world has ever seen had struck the US. The combined effects of the 1929 stock market crash, the World Trade Center collapse, government policies, and bank failures all resulted in this historic tragedy. In the midst of this, a man named Charles Darrow was sitting down with his friend and their wives to play the Landlord's Game. Naturally, there was some confusion about how to actually play since Magie hadn't clearly defined the game's rules. After repeated attempts to figure it out, Darrow finally asked his friend to write down a copy of the rules for the game, so that they could have a solid reference. He took these new rules and began designing his own version of the game. With household items as game pieces and handwritten cards to play with, he named his new variation Monopoly and attempted to sell it to Parker Brothers, an American toy and game manufacturer. But his initial version had several flaws and was flat out rejected at the first time of asking. That didn't deter Darrow from looking to sell, so he brought the idea to various local department stores. This quickly turned into a successful venture, and in 1935, after Monopoly had gone through several revisions, Parker Brothers finally purchased the rights to the game. From there, the game began seeing massive success and quickly grew to one of the most popular board games in America. It was even voted as America's #1 game between 1940 and 1960, in large part due to the game's mascot, which goes by many names. It's most commonly called the Monopoly Man, but is also known as Mr. Monopoly and Rich Uncle Pennybags. But this character wasn't a random creation. According to Phil Orbanes, the CEO of Parker Brothers, The Monopoly Man was based on a real Depression-era New York investor and banker, and one of the most well-known businessmen of the 19th century, J.P. Morgan. Morgan was well known for reorganizing businesses, turning non-profitable organizations into renowned successes. He did this so much that it was even given a term, Morganization, which was essentially a method of monopolizing. This all made him a very fitting character for the Monopoly Man to represent. And as quickly as the rebranded game came to the forefront, its original creator faded into the background. Maggie was given very little credit and received next to no money for Monopoly's success. But Monopoly's growth throughout the mid to late 19th century was doomed to fail in the 2000s. Even if you've never sat down to play Monopoly yourself, you may have at least seen a group of depressed-looking people sitting around a table playing it. That's because Monopoly is based on Maggie's first version of the landlord game. Maggie was very intentional with the way she set up her first game. It was meant to frustrate people. Frustrate them so much that the following version of the game would be like a breath of fresh air. It was a contrast between what she thought to be a twisted economic system and the system that could save it. Her second version was a much more enjoyable experience, something modern Monopoly fails to be. The majority of players are left to drudge through a painfully slow game, while one other player may be enjoying success. Monopoly has even ironically been subtitled as the fast-dealing property trading game, though most people would never put Monopoly and fast in the same sentence. But even more taxing than this is the feeling that winning Monopoly happens entirely by chance. In a game like roulette, people go in knowing that there's little they can do to guarantee the ideal outcome. Whereas in a game like chess, you'd be sadly mistaken to think that a strategy wouldn't help you. While most board games usually fall somewhere in between these two in terms of chance, Monopoly poses as something similar to chess, and in reality is far similar to roulette, making it a frustrating experience for many players.
It's my turn. It's my turn. I know this game. I threw.
Since it has released, many articles have been published calling Monopoly one of the worst board games of all time. Many families go as far as to ban it from their homes, with a 2021 survey reporting that 1 in 5 households banned the game entirely from their game nights. And on a national scale, Monopoly has even been banned by entire countries, with China, Russia, and Cuba being only a few on that list. But perhaps the biggest reason people struggle to love this game is because of the reality it reminds them of, the seemingly unstoppable dominance of monopolies. Today, big tech corporations like Amazon, Meta, and Google dominate our economy. And in a time more and more shifting towards the virtual world, this scares a lot of people. But what do you think about Monopoly? Let us know in the comments below and what company you'd like to see covered next.